The second and final week of Commanders OTAs this offseason program are officially in the books as this team prepares for mandatory minicamp next week. And today, I'm going to be giving you guys my list of 8 winners from Commanders OTAs and 4 losers on today's edition of the Commanders Report. Before we get into the content today, do me a favor, kick off today's show by clicking that thumbs up icon. It really does help us out. It's a free and easy way to help out our channel. And if you're excited for mandatory minicamp next week like we are here at the Commanders Report, click that thumbs up icon to kick us off. So before I get into my list here, I want you guys to keep in mind that OTA work is pretty inconsequential, all right? Like, you're putting in your basic install that you're going to be putting in during the first week of training camp anyway. And, it's just an opportunity for players to, practice in an organized environment during the middle of the offseason to kind of get their bodies ready for the start of training camp and before the real work starts. Once we get to training camp here at the end of July. So, I'm not really putting too much stock into, I'm definitely not overreacting to anything that's happening at OTAs. I'm just letting you guys know, based on the reporting we have on the ground in Ashburn this week, which players shined and which ones didn't. So first up here, let's start with the winners. Let's start with the positive stuff, all right? Let's start with the quarterback, Jayden Daniels, who is looking very impressive. Now, obviously, OTAs are kind of designed to make the quarterback look good. But Jayden Daniels, it looks like he has put on some weight this year. You can tell, in his legs and in his arms that he is definitely looking stronger this year. And he has put the work in the weight room to put on some weight, which is going to give him a little bit more cushion there, a little bit more armor to hopefully stay healthy throughout the entirety of his sophomore campaign here. And, he's throwing the ball, with the same beautiful throwing mechanics that we saw from him last year. He's certainly looking like he's going to be able to take yet another step forward as he's looking even more comfortable in Cliff Kingsbury's offense heading into year 2. So very excited about the second year for Mr. Jayden Daniels. Then we get to Deebo Samuel, his newest weapon in the offense this year. Of course, the Commanders just traded a 5th-round pick for him. And after last year, Deebo, didn't have his best season last year with the San Francisco 49ers. A lot of people called him out of shape. And, to be fair, on tape, Deebo did not have his best season, all right? And because of that, a lot of people are kind of doubting Deebo going into this year with the Washington Commanders. But let me tell you, man, he looks like a man on a mission. He looks cut. He looks like he kind of got a little bit more leaner, lost some weight during the offseason, and now, it looks like he is ready to really try and, kind of revive his career after a really rough season last year with the San Francisco 49ers. And as the number 2 weapon in this offense, alongside Terry McLaurin, with a very creative offensive coordinator like Cliff Kingsbury that's going to be using him on a bunch of creative motions, using him in the backfield, using him outside and in the slot. Like, this guy is going to be the Swiss Army knife for the Washington Commanders offense, and he's looking damn good out there in his first days in a Commanders helmet. Then we get to Daron Payne here, who apparently has had a super impressive offseason, according to not only the head coach Dan Quinn, but also defensive coordinator Joe Witt Jr. Both of them specifically pointed out Daron Payne and the work that he has done this offseason for the Washington Commanders here. And I really do think that Payne is going to have a hell of a season. Obviously he's getting paid a lot of money, and last year, he didn't really have a lot of impact plays. I think he played a very crucial role as a run defender, and I'm going to continue to believe that he's going to fill that type of role in the Commanders defense. But it certainly seems like they brought in some bigger bodies like Javon Kinlaw and Eddie Goldman this offseason so that Daron Payne can be more free to get more of those one-on-one opportunities and attack the pass rusher, or attack the passer, I should say, and get more sacks and get more TFLs and, make more impact plays than he did last year for the Washington Commanders. So very excited about Daron Payne this season. Then we get to Quan Martin, the safety, who took a big year 2 leap last year after kind of let's just face it, a lackluster rookie season in Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio's kind of squishy cover 4 heavy defense. But Martin last year got moved to free safety full-time, and he really took on that role with grace. And apparently this year, he's looking damn good in practice again. And, the Commanders and Joe Witt Jr. and Dan Quinn, they're expecting him to take on a big-time leadership role inside the Commanders' defense this year. And, if he can make an equal jump in year 3 than what he did in year 2 coming off that rookie season, I think we're going to be talking about Martin as one of the better safeties in the National Football League this year. So very, very encouraged by what we're seeing with 20 so far in the offseason. Then Frankie Luvu, and you guys know, man, I love me some Frankie Luvu. I think he's one of the best interior linebackers in the National Football League. I think he's one of the most underrated defensive players in all of football, one of the better blitzing linebackers, and he is just absolutely flying around out there, man. All the reports on the ground in Ashburn are talking about how he's blowing things up in the team periods. He's an athletic freak. And, of course, he's kind of like their dynamic weapon on defense that Dan Quinn likes to deploy in pass-heavy situations as a blitzer. So I'm really excited to see what Frankie's going to do in the second year of this defense. It seems to fit his physical profile to a T. And I think I'm going to say it right now, I think he's going to be an all-pro caliber player once again this year. Then we get to Jeremy Reaves, the safety. In the years past, he's been the special teams ace for this team, a former Pro Bowler. And, Dan Quinn said this week that, yes, he is our special teams ace, but he's also looking to find a role for him in the starting defense because he just keeps making plays during the OTAs and during the offseason program. And he's definitely looking good. Now, obviously, you're just in shorts and in helmets at this point, and he's got to prove himself during training camp if he wants to get into kind of the starting rotation for the Washington Commanders. But as we've talked about extensively on this show, Washington's looking for that third safety, all right? Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr., they love to put three safeties on the field at one time. Obviously, you have Will Harris and, of course, Quan Martin kind of locked in as your two starting safeties heading into the year, but they still need that bandit safety. And if Jeremy Reaves continues to make plays here, perhaps we're going to be talking about Jeremy in more than just a special teams ace type of role, especially if he keeps making plays when the pads go on once we get to late July. So who's your guy? Let me know down there in the comment section. Who will be the surprise breakout player for the Washington Commanders this season? This will be the pinned comment on today's show. In just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at Ridge. And while I'm talking about Ridge, go down there in the comment section, find that pinned comment, and give me your answer. Today's edition of the Commanders Report is brought to you by our friends at Ridge. And Ridge isn't just about wallets, guys. Their wallet is kind of what they're known for, but they create premium everyday carry essentials like key cases, suitcases, rings, all built with the same sleek, durable design. I personally have the Ridge wallet that I'll show you here in just a second, and I love its unique, slim, and modern design, which carries up to 12 cards. It's also super durable as it's made with premium materials like aluminum, titanium, and carbon fiber. And no matter what Ridge product you choose to get, Ridge has free shipping, a 99-day risk-free trial, and a lifetime warranty on all of their products. And guys, before I tried out the Ridge wallet here, I had this big brick of a wallet that was huge. It was taking up a lot of space in my in my pockets, and it made my pants look weird with how much it was bulging out. Pause. But then you get this Ridge wallet here where you've got the nice little slim design. You guys can barely even see it. It's made out of titanium and a bunch of different premium materials like that. You can also get Commanders-centered products from Ridge as well. So if you want a Ridge wallet with the Commanders logo on there and you want to represent the Commanders logo everywhere you go, you can get your Ridge wallet today. And like I mentioned, guys, they got a bunch of different products for you guys to choose, all made with premium materials that you guys can try out today. And right now, just in time for Father's Day, Ridge is having a huge sale. Get up to 40% off your order at ridge.com/chat. Just head on over to ridge.com/chat to find the perfect gift for dad or for yourself. When you check out, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them that you were sent by the Commanders Report by Chat Sports. Give dad the upgrade he deserves this year with a gift from Ridge. Continuing on with my list of Commanders OTA winners here, Jaylin Lane, the rookie receiver out of Virginia Tech. You made my winners list for the rookie minicamp, and Lane continues to impress at Commanders practice, where his speed, is just crazy good. And, Dan Quinn talked about his ability as a punt return man. They felt like he was the best punt return guy in the draft this year, and that's where he's going to be providing value. So not only are the Commanders going to be a threat to score and make a big explosive play on offense with Jayden Daniels on the field every single play, but also on special teams. When you punt the football to the Washington Commanders, this team wants to make you pay for that. And Jaylin Lane has the speed and the vision and the yak ability not only to be an impact as a punt return man, but also as kind of a short kind of yak threat where you put him on drags, you put him on slants, you get him the football, and he can run away from people with that dynamic speed that he brings to the table. So he has been really impressive to this point. And obviously the speedy guys tend to be a little bit more impressive and a little bit more eye-catching because the pads aren't on. You can't hit anybody, so the people that are flying around are the people that are more noticeable. But Lane is certainly making a good impression to start his Commanders career. Then speaking of guys that are making a good impression in their rookie season, in their first year in this offense. Jacory Croskey-Merritt, the running back out of Arizona, had kind of an eligibility dispute kind of last year. He only played in one game, which is why he fell to the 7th round to the Washington Commanders. But let me tell you, man, this guy was probably a late day 2, early day 3 type of talent, and he fell to you all the way to round 7. And that is an absolute value for a team that's looking for a potential long-term answer at the running back position. You have Brian Robinson Jr. and Austin Ekeler, 2 veterans on the team, but both of them are heading into contract years, and Jacory Croskey-Merritt looks really, really good out there, man. Like, he's really starting to, establish himself, and, obviously he's a rookie. He's going to have to prove everything he gets once training camp comes around. When the pads go on, it's a different game. But he's another guy whose speed and explosiveness and vision have really, turned some heads in a good way for the Washington Commanders coaching staff. Now, before we get into my list of 4 Commanders losers from OTAs this week and last week as well, make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon if you haven't already. If you're having a good time with us here on the Commanders Report, really do appreciate all of your guys' support, and it's a free and easy way to help out the channel. So if you appreciate the work we do for you here at the Commanders Report, giving you free and informative Commanders content, click that thumbs up icon to help us out. So now on to the losers here, guys. And like I said at the beginning of today's show, obviously there's still a lot of time to go for these guys to, kind of get a better footing than maybe where they are right now after OTAs. But these are certainly some players that maybe aren't in love with where they stand on the roster at this point. First one being second-year receiver out of Rice, Luke McCaffrey. And as we talked about, the rookie out of Virginia Tech, Jaylin Lane, is really making a name for himself. Not only as an offensive player, but as a special teams player. And that's really where McCaffrey had most of his value for this team last year. And it just kind of feels like Luke is getting, lost in the shuffle here. I honestly didn't think his tape at Rice was all that great. And, last year with the Commanders, I didn't think that, he showed anything particularly special. And, this was really going to be a big offseason for him to prove that, he should be moving up the ranks. And it just seems like, Terry McLaurin, even though he's got that contract dispute right now, it seems like he will be back with the team at some point. And with the new contract, Deebo is putting in a lot of work. He's going to be on the field every play. Noah Brown seems to be the established number 3 receiver. And then with Jaylin Lane looking so good, right now you can almost slot in Luke McCaffrey, I think, as like wide receiver 5. And that is something, we still haven't seen what Michael Gallup is going to be able to do during training camp as well. That's going to be intriguing. So, McCaffrey certainly still has a lot to prove, and I wouldn't say he necessarily established himself among the group of Noah Brown and Jaylin Lane over the last 2 weeks. Speaking of another receiver that I think is kind of getting lost in the shuffle here, KJ Osborn. He was brought in last year, didn't play a whole lot, and honestly, I don't think Osborn's a very good player. I don't think he's a particularly good route runner. I don't think he's a particularly good athlete. And I think he got that, he put up some numbers in Minnesota because, Kevin O'Connell's a genius, and teams were double teaming Justin Jefferson, and Kevin O'Connell would just be able to, scheme the number 3 receiver open very consistently because he knew that teams were going to be double teaming JJ. So, KJ Osborn had a lot of things schemed wide open for him. It wasn't because he was, a fantastic separator or a great athlete or anything like that. And now that he's away from a team that, is not getting, number 1 receiver's not getting double or even triple teamed at times, he's not putting up the same production, and for good reason. So I wouldn't be surprised at all, honestly, if KJ ends up not making the team. And I don't think he's a particularly good player. And I think that showed this week. Then we get to Sheldon Day, defensive tackle, who I actually thought had a really good season for the Washington Commanders last year. Obviously this team dealt with some injuries and all this different stuff, and they needed Day to come in and, play starter reps, and I thought he played pretty darn well. But this year, you bring in Javon Kinlaw. Jer'Zhan Newton is fully healthy. They bring in Eddie Goldman, who's like a run-stuffing nose tackle type. I just don't know where Sheldon Day is going to fit in with the whole situation here. And, I don't think he's going to get nearly the amount of playing time he had in the Washington Commanders offense, or defense, I should say, last year. So because of that, I would have him designated as a loser here. And then Chris Rodriguez Jr., the running back. And once again, this is a league where if somebody is ascending, somebody else has to be on the decline, especially if you're on the same team and in the same position group. And with Jacory Croskey-Merritt looking so good right out of the gate, it's going to be interesting to see if Chris Rodriguez Jr. can keep the pace and, not only overcome Jacory Croskey-Merritt, who's a rookie that's coming in and trying to establish himself, but also Jeremy McNichols, who You could argue, was the number 3 running back last year over Chris Rodriguez Jr., who was the RB4. So, Chris Rodriguez Jr. heading into his 3rd season has a lot to prove, and I think Jacory Croskey-Merritt probably looked better during the 2 weeks of OTA. So he still has a lot to, get done this offseason if he wants to carve out another kind of significant role for the Washington Commanders offense this year. But with the addition of Croskey-Merritt, I think that his status as a player that's going to get snaps for this team this year is certainly in doubt. So subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, guys. Today we did winners and losers from OTAs. Next week we've got daily mandatory minicamp news and updates for you guys. Also, we're keeping you updated on the latest surrounding the Terry McLaurin situation. We're keeping you updated on the Trey Hendrickson situation to see if the Commanders might trade for him. We got extensive and informative Commanders content for free on this channel every single day. So if you enjoyed yourself today, click that subscribe button to never miss any of our videos.